I actually tweeted a few days ago and I said that there will be selling pressure all week because MiCA is coming in, or the 1 July deadline for MiCA actually starts tomorrow, and that really does affect the European landscape quite a bit. And because Binance doesn't have a MiCA license I did foresee that a lot of Binance users were going to sell a whole lot of their positions, which is subsequently what happened. But it's not only about Binance; it's about a lot of stuff that's actually happening tomorrow in the 1 July MiCA deadline. Now, a lot of people think that MiCA is coming in to effect tomorrow, and that's actually not the truth. MiCA has actually been in effect since 2024, but the deadline to comply with MiCA actually happens tomorrow, in less than 24 hours in Europe. And it's going to have a lot of implications for crypto. It's going to have a lot of implications for exchanges, how exchanges operates. It may drive people on-chain. It may have implications on stablecoins and how you pay with your stablecoins. So there's lots of implications, and I thought, just because it's 1 day before MiCA, I think we should maybe just dig in to see what actually changes tomorrow. So today, it's all about MiCA. It's going to be a big show. There's lots to dig into. There's lots of opportunities as well, some of them which we've already caught and some of them which you can still catch over the next 12 months. So let's get the show on the road, guys, 1 day before MiCA. Here's that selling I warned you about, 58,413. I do believe that a lot of it is actually because of MiCA and because there's one more day before the MiCA compliance deadline actually comes in. And you can kind of see it in the bubbles. It's Bitcoin that's red. It's most of the bubbles that are red. You can see it here. There are one or two green ones. Casper's green. A couple of others are green. We'll talk about the green ones. We'll talk about the red ones. I think the most important thing is for us to just understand that MiCA is a set of regulations around crypto that basically unify the EU. And these regulations have actually been in place since 2024. But the deadline for compliance for certain intermediaries or for certain affected parties by this is the 1st of July. So I had a little bit of a discussion with ChatGPT, who my wife thinks I'm having an affair with, by the way. And as ChatGPT says, the most important thing to understand about MiCA is that the new law doesn't start on the 1st of July. Most of it's been in since late 2024. What does it actually do? It creates one rule across all 27 EU countries designed to protect consumers. I'm going to challenge that. It's designed to regulate exchanges, brokers, and custodians. It's designed to regulate stablecoin issuers. There's an opportunity here when it comes to stablecoin issuers. It is designed to reduce fraud and improve transparency, and I think it does a great job of that. And it allows licensed firms to operate throughout the EU with a single license. Sorry, I am a bit sick today. I've got a bit of bronchitis, but let's carry on. All right. Well, so what actually changes on the 1st of July? Any entity that is not MiCA licensed as of tomorrow may not operate legally in the EU, which is very different from what happened up until now. They could be unlicensed and they could operate in the EU, providing they followed the MiCA regulations, but now they have to actually comply and they have to have a MiCA license. Who gets affected? Crypto exchanges, brokers, custodians, wallet providers, OTC desks, anyone that basically touches crypto, even stablecoin issuers. The crypto itself is not regulated. So Bitcoin itself is not regulated. Ethereum is not regulated. So let's talk about the exchange landscape and who has a license and who doesn't have a license. So if you look at the crypto exchanges that actually do have licenses, and this is quite important, so you can kind of see it over here. It basically says Bybit has a license. They are licensed in Austria. OKX is licensed. They are licensed in Malta. Coinbase is licensed out of Luxembourg. Gate is licensed out of Malta. KuCoin also licensed out of Austria. And the one notable exclusion here is Binance, right? So I mean, I was messing around with Binance earlier. So I did write a tweet about this a few days ago. And I said, Binance is not part of this. And as I said, the reason should actually infuriate you, because what the reason is, I think, is that the European Central Bank wants to launch a CBDC. And the way to weaken crypto and to destroy crypto liquidity in Europe is to effectively interfere in the process. And I think that that's exactly what happened. I think that there was interference in the process by the ECB. Therefore, Binance, which is the biggest liquidity provider in Europe, didn't have a license. They were indicated that they were going to get a license from Greece. And in return, they would give Greece a whole lot of jobs. They'd give Greece like $250 million a year in tax income. And now all of that has basically fallen away and Binance has to go and reapply somewhere else. So just a quick note around the Binance thing, and we'll talk about all the other stuff later. So the first thing is, if you have a Binance account, don't worry, your funds are safe. The second thing is, if you want to sell or withdraw your money, you can do that at any point after the 1st of July. So if you want to go and sell a position that you have open on Binance, you can wait until August, September, October to actually sell that position. The third thing is that, as I said, your funds are safe. The third thing is that we believe that Binance will actually get a license. So you don't have to all like rush out of Binance. Your funds are safe. However, if you do want to move to any other exchange, there are other exchanges, and you know who's got a license and who hasn't got a license and where they are licensed. And now it's becoming a bit of a land grab, right? So there's a big land grab that's basically happening at the moment. And what you can see is that there's a fight between 𝗙𝗔 and between Star, who actually runs OKX, right? So he said that 𝗙𝗔 said, look, Europe is losing out massive liquidity by not integrating Binance, which is pretty true. Star says yes, but they're also losing out on 10th of October's, which is almost implying that Binance caused the 10th of October. He says 𝗙𝗔 keeps misleading the public that I'm jealous of him. Jealous of what? His jail time as convicted criminal, or October 11th, when millions of people were liquidated and billions of dollars were wiped out, pushing the entire crypto industry into a crypto winter, or his tolerance of compliance violations and firing members of his own compliance team because they were investigated accounts labeled as internal. I'm not jealous of him. I'm ashamed of him. I almost forgot his unethical conduct during the OKCoin days, yet he mentioned me almost 10 times in his book, which is full of bullshit, repeating false claims. I have no interest in wasting my time and revisiting these old events, digging through my evidence, but if he believes it's necessary, I'm more than happy to go through the facts. So this is the response. So I went to Grok and I said, look, Grok, like, here's what I said to Grok. I said, hey, Grok, where does the StarOKX and Binance, why do the StarOKX hate Binance so much? Please tell me the real story. And Grok says it's a long-running personal rivalry. Star founded OKX, OKCoin. 𝗙𝗔 worked there briefly before launching it. Old 2015 disputes over contracts. Star claims 𝗙𝗔 forged dogs. 𝗙𝗔 says his account was hacked, and 𝗔𝗰𝗵𝗲 issues never died. 𝗙𝗔's April 2026 memoir, Freedom of Money, revived it. Star publicly called 𝗙𝗔 a habitual liar, denied claims, and resurfaced. Anyway, so Grok breaks it down. Now Star comes back, and he actually retweeted this. He says, I don't know how Grok learned about these facts. This was never about a personal rivalry. It's always been about the facts, integrity, and standing up against intentional violation of laws and regulation. So he says, competition is healthy. Spreading false information is not. I have no interest in personal attacks. I do have an interest in correcting the public record. So there's a massive fight and a massive land grab. Right now, Binance is the biggest exchange in Europe, and guess what? Everybody wants their share. So Gate wants a share of it, Binance wants a share of it, Bybit wants a share of it, OKX wants a share of it. And what they're doing is they're offering high deposit bonuses, sometimes like up to 8, 9, 10% deposit bonuses. If you shift from Binance and you go to one of these things, you get like an 8% deposit bonus or a 9% deposit bonus, just to try, and it's like a land grab at the moment. So ultimately what you can see is that there's a land grab. Who gets to benefit in the land grab? Well, the customer gets to benefit, because as mommy and daddy fight, the kids basically get bigger gifts on Christmas. You know, like that's basically how the whole narrative works. So you as a user, if you're on Binance, you can stay on Binance. You just can't buy any more things. There was also rumors that Bybit wasn't in the EU. Bybit they are in the EU. They just have a different exchange, and it's called Bybit EU. And if you log on to the Bybit platform, I think you'll be diverted to the Bybit EU. It'll say that they're in the EU. So that is effectively the exchange landscape. Now, bear in mind that the MiCA license itself is only for spot for spot crypto, and for perpetuals, you actually need another license, which is called a CASP license, a MiCA CASP it's called a MIFID license, MIFID or MIFLD license, which is a perpetuals license. Now, if you want to trade perpetuals, then these are the platforms that actually allow you to trade perpetuals: Kraken Pro, OKX, and then Hyperliquid, which is basically what we'll talk about in a second. So that's the situation if you're in the EU. That is what happens tomorrow, I believe. I believe that all the exchanges will comply, or most exchanges will comply, and that is effectively what happens. Now, you may say to yourself, well, I'm in the EU, and I don't really want people to know that I'm in the EU, and I don't really want to be a part of this whole thing, and I want to show you what you can and can't do. I think the one thing that you can do is you can use a VPN. again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just showing you what other people are doing. And you can actually use a VPN. I'll actually show you in a second how it works. Let me just quickly share that. And I want to just show you how a VPN works. Okay, hold on. I have to, when I share a screen here, I have to remove the old screen and bring up a new screen. So this here is a VPN. I'll just show you now. Hold on a second. Bang. Okay, can they see that? That's the question. Let's see. Okay, so that is a VPN. That's what a VPN basically looks like. Now, as you can see, I can basically tell it where I want to be. So if I want to be in the US, I just click US. If I want to be in Portugal, I click Portugal. And then I'm not going to do it, because if I do click that, then the problem is that it's going to log me off my current internet and connect me via Portugal or via Albania, Australia, or somewhere that's not the EU. And that's effectively what you want by using a VPN. And then you can sign up to any exchange that doesn't really require KYC. And there's lots of exchanges that don't really require KYC. If that's your game and you want to sign up with exchanges that don't require KYC, I think you're fully within your right to go and sign up to an exchange that doesn't. Let me just share this screen again. Doesn't have or doesn't comply with KYC. There's many of them. I mean, I can mention one. Blowfin is one of them. There's links below. There's links below to VPNs. Now let us talk about the implications, the winners and the losers of all of this. So who are the winners and who are the losers of MiCA? And I think to an extent, MiCA actually does a great job in actually protecting the European investor. And why it does that is because if you look at the breakdown of what MiCA actually provides, I think it does a lot of really cool things, right? The first thing is it regulates the exchanges. It makes sure that they all have regular proof of reserves. It makes sure that countries in Europe, that they all have a head office in a country in Europe. And as a result of that, that means that they pay tax in Europe and they bring jobs to Europe, which Europe sorely needs. In terms of stablecoins, it means that the stablecoin providers need to have one-on-one, one-to-one backing of all stablecoins, which all of these things do actually help consumers quite a bit. Now let's talk about some other winners, right? So the losers are going to be a whole lot of exchanges that need to shut down and basically can't operate legally in Europe anymore. Those are the big losers. Let's talk about the big winners. And this chart actually basically shows the winners. So you can see Lighter, you can see Hyperliquid, you can see Uniswap. They've all been doing really, really well. I mean, just look at this Hyperliquid chart, right? Here's the, sorry, not the Hyperliquid chart. That is the Lighter chart. Look at Lighter. Lighter is almost at a high. Why? Because when people move off exchanges, they're going to move on chain. And the same thing's happening when you look at Uniswap. Uniswap's just had its biggest month in fees, right? Why? Because people are starting to move on chain. Same thing with Hyperliquid. So Hyperliquid, if you look at the Hyperliquid versus Binance volume, you can see that it's spiked in the last couple of days. So the one thing that you can see is that with these regulations, the regulations are pushing more people on chain. And that's actually what we want. We want more people using blockchain. So how do you get more people using blockchain? Well, you put a regulation that says you're not allowed to use centralized exchanges, and people will naturally gravitate to the on-chain, which is the blockchain, which is what we're doing. We're driving adoption. So thank you, European regulators. You're helping us drive on-chain adoption, which is something that we really, really need. So thank you very much. Arigato. That's the Japanese, by the way. One of the biggest losers here, Tether. So Tether has $186 billion stablecoin set to be removed on regulated EU platforms. So basically, Tether is not compliant, doesn't have a MiCA license, and so that there is a Tether. Now, I believe that this will be very good for Circle, right? Because USDC is compliant. And I believe that you need to watch the Circle chart. Even though it's probably already priced in, you need to watch the chart of Circle, because Circle may be a big beneficiary in the fact that many exchanges are now going to have the USDC as their predominant pair. So, I mean, the other big winner, which is like a strange winner here, which actually I do want to show you this, is the UAE. I mean, ironically, the UAE is the big winner because more European crypto founders are exploring the UAE as MiCA's deadline approaches with firms lacking authorization. So basically, you know, if you can't get your license in the EU, you'll just go move, and all the talent and all the taxes and everything will just move from the EU to Dubai, which is exactly what's been happening for a long time, actually, for a long time, actually. And so I kind of want to say that maybe Europe's gone one step too far. Look, you need regulation. Let's call a spade a spade. You need regulation. Maybe Europe has been Europe here and they've gone a bit too far to the left. which they always seem to do, and they seem to drive out innovation, and they seem to drive out. But the one is, I mean, OKX is going to benefit a lot here. Coinbase is going to benefit a lot here. Binance is going to lose a lot here. European consumer is going to get a 10% deposit bonus. What a pleasure. Like, what an absolute pleasure. But if you want to trade perps, well, then you need a non-KYC exchange. I mean, it also, I think, it also now brings us back to the Clarity Act. So, like, now we see that Europe's passed MiCA regulations. And then you've got the Clarity Act, which now has a 45% chance of being put into law. There's a long way to go here. I keep reading things that are happening. Bull Theory says that the next 2 weeks could decide whether the Clarity Act becomes law. The Senate is out till the 13th of July. During that time, staff, White House, and industry stakeholders are working to resolve some remaining issues. One of the issues is Trump's ethics and whether Trump can monetize crypto businesses. And I think they're talking about Elizabeth Warren talking about Trump's new meme coin. Or maybe she's talking about Ansem's new meme coin, which is now at a market cap of $155 million. Now, congratulations if you actually did get into this trade. But this ends like all meme coins end. So please, if you have made money here, take your money and run for the hills, because this ends like all meme coins end. And they all end back at zero, or more or less at zero. And right now they're talking about a lot of airdrops. I would be very skeptical when it comes to airdrops, because airdrops are a way for people that hold crypto to distribute it amongst a whole lot of wallets and say, this is our airdrop, and put it into accounts that they can just basically cash out. I'm not saying Ansem's doing it, by the way. I'm just saying that that is a trick of the trenches. I do think that Ansem is a little bit too high profile to do shenanigans like that. And I think that 𝗙𝗪𝗏 will catch him in 25 seconds flat. Yes, so the Clarity Act, let's go back to it. The Clarity Act. Will it get approved? Won't it get approved? The truth is, it doesn't really matter in Trump's presidency, but afterwards, the problem is that, because the SEC are basically operating on a framework that is almost as good as the Clarity Act being approved, right? However, when the Trump presidency ends, that's when it could have some far-reaching implications, because then the Democrats can basically put in a new SEC chair, and then we may get Gary Gensler back. Can you imagine they put Gary Gensler back? Holy shit. All right, that's that. Let's go back to yesterday's stories around STRC. So today, MicroStrategy is trading at an MNAV of 1.08. So Sailor's out of trouble for now. If you look at STRC trading at 81.78, you look at MSTR. Every time Sailor does something, it just brings the price of Bitcoin down. I mean, it's this year. Every time he said something, it's just brought the price of Bitcoin down. I like what Brad Garlinghouse said here, but I think he's wrong. Financial engineering doesn't drive long-term value to assets. Utility does. I think actually he's wrong. And the reason why I say I think he's wrong is because you need to create utility, but without financial engineering, the entire market is actually driven by financial engineering. That's the situation here. The entire market is actually driven by financial engineering, options, futures, derivatives. Without that, there's no price discovery in markets. What else? We've spoken about Ansem coin. We didn't speak about the World Cup yesterday. Holy moly. Okay, like, wow. Paraguay knocks out Germany. That wasn't on my bingo card. Also not on my bets. Not the bets that I took on Rain Trade. I took the other bet. I took the Germany bet. So I messed that one up. Don't know about you guys. Netherlands knocked out by Morocco. That also, I didn't bet that one, but it wasn't on my bingo card. I did bet that one, but you know what? My bet actually won there. So I bet that both sides would actually score a goal. Okay, and they both did score a goal, so I was fine. What else? I'm eating grape. I don't know why I'm eating grape. So let's just see so the games today: Ivory Coast, Norway, France, Sweden. Okay, if Sweden knock out France here, holy moly. Like, can you imagine? Because France are the current favorites, I think. Let's quickly just go look. Because actually, this has all changed now. And they've started to bring in Wimbledon things already. Okay, let's focus. I know a lot of us have got ADD, so let's hone in our ADD. Okay, right now, France, 26.5% winners here. Sweden don't even feature here. Not even 1%. So that would be, like, if there was going to be an upset, that would be the upset. Sweden beating France. And if there was going to be an upset here, Ivory Coast beating Norway, because you've got that Haaland playing for Norway. He didn't play much the last game because they were both through. So some big games today. Remember, on rain.trade, there's a link below if you want to go and sign up. You can go and you can take positions on anyone. I also think France will win, but I would have told you that Germany was going to win also. I didn't think, and I would have told you that Netherlands were definitely going to win. Yeah. I think that's it. I mean, there's a whole lot of like positions that I might want to open here. So will France advance? Let's have a look here. Ivory Coast, Norway. That's one. So we can take a look at here. 90-minute result, France versus Sweden. Let's have a look here. Let's have a look at this. This is a nice one. So France for the win after 90 minutes, 76.5. A draw after 90 minutes, 15.5. So what they're saying here is if you can, you're getting like 1 to 7 odds if you take that one. I mean, prediction market, not betting, it's predictions. Yeah, there's a lot. Anyway, go and have a look at it on Rain.trade. I don't have time to do it now because the show will run forever, but I'm actually going to go for a couple of these. Is there anything else, Horace? No, not really, eh? All right, my friends, I will see you again tomorrow when the MiCA regulations will be in and you'll all have a VPN. See you again tomorrow. Bye.